Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of What's Your Story? Tonight we have the great privilege of sitting down with our town manager, Laurie Smith. Welcome to our show. Thank you for being here. We know that you are a very busy person, so we appreciate your time coming over and sitting in the hot seat, as we like to call it.
Well, I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. We usually start out our program by asking people where they grew up. A lot of people know you from where you live around the corner. Do you feel like that sometimes?
Yes.
But
sometimes when I leave a meeting, I say I'm going home.
That's it.
Home is 6 Elm Street.
That's right. So, but we don't get to know a whole lot about you. We know what you do, and you do it fabulously, by the way. But where did you start your life?
I grew up in Maine, and I grew up in Brunswick, where my family's from, on Mare Point Road. So Mare Point is a little peninsula off of Brunswick, so I grew right up on the Atlantic Ocean, on farmland that my grandparents owned. And as most things in Maine happen, they had to sell it off over time. But my parents have a house that my father built, and 1,000-square-foot ranch house that we grew up with 4 kids and 2 adults.
Wow.
And right next to my grandmother. And in the early days, cows were in the front yard. And as time progressed, more traffic and seasonal population popped up next door. But that's where I started life.
Wow. And did you go to high school, Brunswick?
I'm a Brunswick Dragon.
Yes.
And then from there, I went to the University of Maine at Orono, where I majored in public administration.
Wow. So when you got out of college, did you go right into the profession as far as working in a town position, or?
Yeah, no, I had done an internship between my junior and senior year in the city of Bath, and that was a requirement of the program. But I actually thought about going to law school.
Yeah.
And so after college, I took a break and went as a paralegal and worked in a few different law firms in Portland, both for defense attorneys and plaintiff attorneys and real estate attorneys.
Yeah.
And decided that was not the work for me. And I decided at that point in time that I was going to do some temporary work for lawyers and then start my journey on public administration and try to find a job.
Yeah.
And I, from there, was hired as the town manager in Booth Bay.
Okay.
Back in 1988.
Yeah. So how long were you there? How long were you in Booth Bay?
Well, I met my husband at the same time. So my time in Booth Bay was short as he was transferred to Norfolk, Virginia. He was in the Navy.
Okay.
And so we then tried a long distance marriage, and of course being young and in love, remember what that's like, and you wanted to be near that person. I ended up moving to Virginia.
Yeah.
And staying with him until his time was up, which was a 2-year stint. And then we came back to Maine, and I was hired as the manager in Oxford, Maine.
Okay. So, and you were there for a while. When did you come to Kennebunkport?
I was hired on December 13th, 2013.
Okay.
And I started in February of 2014.
So because you were in an area of tourist area, you had some good background from the Booth Bay area. Does it feel similar or not?
I would say a lot has changed since Booth Bay. I've been manager in Booth Bay, Oxford, Booth Bay Harbor. Then I went to the city of Auburn for 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I went to Wiscasset, and from Wiscasset, I came here. So some people say I can't keep a job.
No.
And so
you make every town a little better as you go along.
That's my hope. So I think, I'm a coast girl. I grew up on the coast.
Yeah.
And so that was an attraction for me, being by the water. I've worked with commercial fishermen in the fishing industry in the past. I like the size of the community. I think Kennebunkport may be small year round, but it's complex in terms of the services it provides and the resources it has. And I think that it is the right size community because you get to know people and people get to know you, and you can really have an impact.
Yeah.
I find the larger the government, I mean, in Auburn, we had about a population of around 25,000, and our workforce was probably close to 200 full-time employees. And I enjoyed my time in Auburn, but I always said I would never want to go any bigger because you start to lose touch with knowing employees' names and really knowing the community.
Yeah, yeah. And I think here there are so many people that want to get involved from from what I see here at the library and just from the different committees that are around town, and you do get to know them a little bit more. Because of the way that the whole makeup of this town works. So when you're sitting in meetings, because you have how many a week? A lot. How do you balance like some of the projects that you're working on and being on different committees and whatnot? I find that a little challenging here. Because you want to be all for everybody, but that's not always.
I think one of the most challenging things is people only see a part of you. So it's not like a corporation where the people who oversee you are doing the same work as you and see you on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so people have a tendency to say, "Can I talk to you just for 5 minutes?" Or "I just need a minute." And so the problem is they don't see all the other people who are asking for that minute or all the projects and challenges that I'm trying to juggle.
Right.
And I think my goal is always that we keep marching together. So we keep everybody in alignment and we're not getting too far ahead of one party or another. And that's the real challenge. I try to help people understand where projects are and what some of the time commitments, especially for my staff, that's an issue as well.
Yeah.
Is I think when we make meetings look easy and they run smoothly, I always say you don't know how many hours went into it behind the scenes to prep, to get the material, to make sure that it was organized in a format that it gets sent out to the public as well, so that people can participate in a seamless way. And that is a challenge that we face, especially when there are so many things going on in town.
Yeah, and the fact that you had to shift over to everything being virtual a couple of years ago, so that was a whole new way of communicating with the public because not everybody is gonna call into a Zoom or
I think in one, I always say what's your strength is your weakness. And so the Zoom, I've just got to hand it to the budget board and the selectmen and the planning board and all those people who had never done anything virtually before and how quickly they were able to learn. And my staff who helped everybody figure it out. We did some practice sessions just logging in. And so it was really amazing what the pandemic forced us to do, which we had said for years we couldn't do.
Yeah.
And now people are very comfortable with that format. It's really opened up an opportunity for many seasonal residents who aren't here physically for the meetings.
That's true.
To participate. And now they really like that.
Yeah.
So now the big challenge is going to go to this hybrid meeting style where we have people in person and people virtually, and how do these volunteer chairs organize the meeting and make sure voices are heard, but don't let chaos erupt.
Well, yeah, because you will have, when you're waiting on someone that's right in front of you, it's so much easier than the person calling in so, and they have just as much. And
even just presentations.
Yeah.
So we went to a PowerPoint or Zoom format of sharing screens. Well, when you're in the meeting room, we used to do that with hard copy or
Right.
a PowerPoint. But then how do you do that so the people at home can see and the people in the room can see? So there's all these little idiosyncrasies you have to work out.
Right.
And we don't have the budget of NBC studios. And so people think, well, I see it on TV and CNN did it and Fox News did it, so why should you? Where's your green screen and your weather map? But we are trying to do it on a small budget, and we're very fortunate to have a great AV crew who helps us.
Yeah, you do. They help us too with things, so we appreciate that. I think the way that you have, so you've got the Wizard of Oz in the back, and he calls in somebody that's going to talk next and all that. So it doesn't seem chaotic to us as
There's
the
a lot of
participants.
messaging and texting going on while all this is happening, and I'm prepping for the next person, and yeah, I'm a producer, and I'm emceeing. It's a lot that happens.
Well, you've done such a great job, though, of making us all feel like, especially in these last few years when it's really been challenging. It's been difficult, I think, to watch, everything shut down and still, business trying to be as usual as it can be. But you put public service announcements out there on a weekly basis. That was really helpful to people. So I hope you got some good feedback from that, because we tuned in and watched what you had to say, and then Allison sometimes would jump in. Chief Sanford would sometimes jump in, so we didn't feel like we were isolated. So, and that's a big deal when you have a community that's, even though it's small, people weren't getting out and,
Right, and that's what we are hearing, especially from people who maybe were not as internet savvy.
Yeah.
Is that they did feel isolated, wanted to know what was happening, and I think they just wanted to hear that things were continuing. Or people often would call me and thought that I had a hotline to the CDC.
Right.
And I was getting all this news ahead of time, which I wasn't. And a lot of times I was finding out from the state at the same time as everyone else.
Right.
And so it was a lot of time and resources just researching what was going on and trying to stay connected.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you have town manager meetings that you attend, or maybe not in person right now, but like, how does all that work?
So in the old days, we had basically 3 trainings a year for town managers, maybe 4. We would have an interchange in March. We would have a meeting with New Hampshire in December. And then we would have our annual conference where we'd get together for a couple of days in August. And then the Maine Municipal Convention is our association, and the managers would attend that as well. So in this virtual world, really the managers reach out to each other. And I think that was a great benefit. And when we weren't hearing from anybody else and we were dealing with things that nobody else had, like doing these virtual meetings and people getting Zoom bombed, and what are you going to handle that? And what was happening with school districts and closures. So I attended on a weekly basis. We had York County managers meet.
Okay.
And then I attended the Cumberland County Managers Group. And then we went to some virtual training. So we were out of the loop really on a statewide basis. But we also had Maine Municipal Association step in and do some additional trainings and outreach. And so that was really helpful because Governor Mills had one of her cabinet members be an outreach to municipalities, which you would think is normal business, but it is not. There's really very little communication from the executive office to municipalities.
Wow.
And so Governor Mills had Hannah Pingree reach out to Maine Municipal, and we would flood all our concerns and issues, and they would go through Hannah and up to the governor's office and back again. And so I thought that was one of the benefits that came out of it, is the other managers in our association really helped pull a lot of
Mm-hmm.
information together quickly.
And that was, I mean, reading the paper, watching TV, there's so many different places to get information. But what I kept finding was it was all different. So
Yes.
you had to, almost like figure it out yourself. And I rely on Dave James, our town crier, for a lot of
Right.
information. So, and I also was leaning on our public health department, which we are very lucky here in this town to have, because I think, some towns were, throwing their hands up and saying, call the hospital but our gals over at the police station, they do such a great job, and they did, setting up places that you could go and get your vaccination or testing site, or I think there was a week there when they were all sick, so that was not
Yes.
pretty.
Yes.
But they
COVID comes for everyone.
It does. It certainly does. So, but I think the way that you all handled it it's phenomenal. So, so family life, like, what do you do when you're not at 6 Elm? Is it 6? Yeah, 6 Elm.
6 Elm. I try to, find time to decompress, have fun. I would say over the past couple of years that was very challenging.
Yeah.
But I'm very close with my family,
Yep.
my siblings, and my dad is still alive, and my children and my nieces and nephews. And we have, 1 or 2 birthday parties a month, it seems like.
That's great.
And,
Yeah.
try to go to the art museum or go camping. Just do things where I can just be a regular person.
Right. And we don't get to see that side of you, so I'm glad to hear that you're doing it. How many kids? I know you have Hope.
I have 4 children, Ivy, Hope, Cooper, and Eli.
Okay. And are they all around? They all around here?
So Ivy lives in Lewiston,
Okay.
and Hope is living in Kennebunkport right now as
Yeah.
she finishes up her master's. And Cooper is currently living with me. He works for the Portland Water District.
Okay.
And Eli is finishing his senior year at University of Maine Farmington.
Wow. So you got that's a lot. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 siblings. I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother.
Yeah. So the younger brother probably spoiled.
If you ask him, he would tell you a different story. But he was the only boy,
Yeah.
and he was the youngest.
Yeah.
So I think
Double whammy.
my mother put a crown on his head.
But it's nice to hear that you're close with your family, because I know sometimes that doesn't always happen. So, especially when you move elsewhere, or
Right.
but-
And one of the things with my job is I move where the job is. And so I think the great thing has been that I've lived in a lot of different parts of the state and
Yeah.
familiar with them, and met a lot of great people. But it's been challenging probably
Yeah.
for my kids.
Yeah. So, what is going on these days with the town? Is there anything that you want us to know about?
I would say
As residents, I'm not a resident, but people
Right, but
watching.
you're here more than you're home.
I probably am.
I would say some of the big challenges we have coming up are certainly climate change, and focused a lot on planning. What does the future look like?
Right.
So in the budget this year, for example, we have designed for a pier road looking at sea level rise in some of the hot spots in town: Goose Rocks
Yeah.
Beach, Dock Square, Cape Porpoise, and what that is going to mean to us. I think we are, just like everyone else, struggling to find good people to work for the town.
Yeah.
The labor market is very tight, and when we have good people, we want to make sure they stay.
Right.
We are looking to, get back to normal, and so we're looking to have the Memorial Day parade this year
Oh, good.
for the first time in a couple of years.
Yep.
And 4th of July fireworks on the 4th of July, and
That's great.
summer camp, looking to do our chalk festival again this
Yep.
fall in September. Looking to partner with the Conservation Trust,
Yep.
on expanding recreation opportunities
Yep.
and working with our Parks and Rec department. I would say that we also have exciting volunteer opportunities.
Oh, great.
So if people are interested in serving on a board or committee,
Mm-hmm.
especially, finding people who have some history with the town,
Yeah.
is really important because we often get applications from people who have just moved here. And it's nice to have a mix of people
Right.
with a little history
Mm-hmm.
and people with some new energy. And so I would let everybody know that there are many different kinds of volunteer opportunities, and you don't have to commit hours and hours. There are those opportunities,
Yeah.
and there are others. And so we are looking to engage people continually moving forward.
Okay. So as far as like some of the committees go, you have a lot. So that's a lot of managing that you do. Conservation Commission, the budget board. That's another. The Board of Selectmen. They what else do you have that's out there? I know there's like a whole
We
bunch
have
that
the planning board,
planning board. Yeah.
the zoning board of appeals, the board of assessment review with our new market analysis. That board will probably be a little busier.
Yeah.
Our growth planning committee is moving forward with the new comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
which we hope will be finalized for the November ballot.
Yep.
But they're doing important work. We have the cemetery committee. We have the shade tree committee.
That's right.
We have,
Yeah.
a variety of opportunities for people to connect. And of course, you can always join the fire department.
Yes.
They will train you from the ground up, and you just have to have a willingness to learn. And, we always are looking for people who are willing to get interior qualified and actually go in a burning building.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not your scene, that there are, from data input and website maintenance
Okay.
to, holding a hose on the scene.
Yeah.
And it's a great partnership with so many people. It's a great way to get connected. And of course, we have a lot of nonprofits in town that are good partners.
Yeah.
And there's great ways to connect there with the community.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's all good to know.
And of course, the library.
And of course the library.
You could
That's
always
right.
volunteer at the library.
That's right. We are partnering with the Climate Initiative next month at the end of April for a talk. It's on a Saturday morning. And it's just to get, kind of the conversation started. When you look towards the future of this, what do you see happening here in town? What would you like to see happen? Besides all of us trying to get informed as much as we can and participating in things. The Climate Initiative is a nonpartisan group that is trying to get kids involved. So what's the town's role when it comes to that?
To the climate initiative in particular.
Yeah.
So I have met with Jono and
Yeah.
Tom, and we have, as a staff level, partnered with them in their education efforts, especially with our local high school
Yeah.
students, and as they attack local issues and get engaged in what that means for us going forward. I think that we would continue to play that role. I would love to see that Kennebunkport become a great, experimentation base. We have a lot of these issues,
Yeah.
whether it's, heavy rainfall and
Right.
drainage issues, whether it's, sewer overflow, whether it is sea level rise and infrastructure. And
So like PRO, what you were just talking about.
and so, I'd really like to see us take advantage of scientists from all over the world, not just engineers from Maine.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we're looking at is a community conversation along with engineers about what are some proposed solutions. So Ocean Avenue, for example.
Yeah.
We just recently did the Ocean Avenue seawall project, but the water, anytime the tide's high, you can see the water
Right.
impacts that road.
Yeah.
If we were just to raise the height of the road, we're going to impact our neighbors who are abutting that road. And so what are some solutions there? Looking at Goose Rocks Beach. It's certainly going to impact people's memories, what they plan to leave their children, this place at Goose Rocks.
Yep.
As well as it has a financial impact on the town if we were to lose that valuation.
Right.
It has a tourism impact. I mean, it is multifaceted,
Yeah.
all of these.
Yep.
And so having the community talk about these and become educated about what are potential solutions
Yeah.
and prioritize them. Because before we just start spending money on what we think will work, we want the community to be engaged in those solutions.
Right, right. I think that's something. I live in Saco, and something that I have found in the time that I've lived here, which is my whole life, I've seen Camp Ellis
Yep.
fall away. And there's so many different ways to attack something like that, but it's not thinking, what is it? So you're talking about all those same things that happen in many towns up and down the East Coast, especially. But I think the community getting involved is the best way to get everybody on board with. Because what happens is we see something working or not working, and there's well, why did they spend all that money on, or all my tax dollars on, so there's always going to be those of us that will say that kind of
Right.
stuff.
And
but
we don't have all the solutions.
you don't, and that's the thing that I think so having conversation, I think, is a really good way to get everybody on board talking about it.
Right, because
So-
some of the solutions are just going to be more monetarily focused, and
Right.
others will be about people's vision of their land and what does that mean if you have retreat from the land.
Right.
And so those are tough conversations to have, but they are so important.
They are, yeah. And you're talking about, when you're talking about the future of, and the people that live there now leaving to their children and all of that sort of thing, you want this to keep continuing
Right.
the way it has. So I didn't offer this up. We had our budget meeting. We were on your meeting last week. But I wanted to mention that if there's some way that the library can help, just even for the community room to start having monthly discussions. I know that Eli Rubin, who is one of your new people, we've talked a little bit about, some of that, and bringing in speakers on really anything that's going on. But I think with the climate initiative, that kickoff in late April, we're sort of hoping that might become a monthly thing, and hearing from these different scientists, because it's very scary, and it's on everybody's mind. So how can we help you besides doing something like that? Is there anything that the library could be doing?
I think certainly, hosting some of these meetings, because when we're trying to reach everybody in the community, as many people as we can, going through these different venues. The library has a certain crowd. The fire department has a crowd, And so we really try to reach out through all those different venues. Some of those meetings we might do closer to those sites to attract people who are living near them. But
The crashing waves on the...
are your toes wet? There's a reason for that. So I think that would be beneficial, helping get the word out about the meetings, but also having some of those conversations. And, Parks and Rec Department was just talking about sustainability as part of their program.
Yeah.
And all these things, to me, as I go through the town, I see how connected they all are.
Yeah.
And putting them under one umbrella, I think, so that people can see all the different opportunities, regardless of how you're connected in the community,
Right.
to have that discussion.
Yeah.
And I think it is scary, and I never want to scare people without hope. And I think there is hope, but I never have been a believer of reaction versus being proactive.
Yeah.
And we know that something is coming. And it is up to us to point that out to people and to give you options about how we move forward.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. If I wanted to go into becoming part of having my career as a town manager, what would you advise someone that was sort of thinking about that for their next job?
I'd first go to a psychiatrist and get a thorough workover.
You do such an amazing job, Laurie, though. It's, I've never seen anybody have more of an even keel when it comes to this is a big job. And you really do it so well. I hope you know that a lot of us appreciate what you're doing. But seriously, if you were going to advise someone.
If you were going to.
After they visit the psychiatrist.
After they go visit the psychiatrist. I think that you really have to enjoy public engagement and meeting with people. Because so much of the job, and you have to be willing to have a flexible schedule. This is not the kind of job where you go home at night and you're checked out and you don't worry about it until Monday morning. It's something where you it has to fuel you.
Yeah.
And so engaging with the public and going to night meetings has to be something you're willing to do. I think you have to develop a bit of a thick skin, they call it.
Yes.
I think to me, it's being open to people's messages. And so those messages are oftentimes people feel not heard, and so their voices may raise, or they feel that they haven't had an opportunity to speak to anybody else. And you never know what's going on in people's lives.
Yeah.
And so you have to remember that we're probably seeing people at some of their worst moments. And so I think that we do an awful lot of good. And to me, I remember years ago, I applied for the job in North Haven, and I was actually offered the job. And at the time, I was moving back from Virginia, and being near family was really important to me, especially after felt like so far away.
Yeah, yep.
And at the time, they said to me, some people see the island and the water as isolation, and others see it as an opportunity to go anywhere. And at the time, I was feeling like it was isolation. So I knew that wasn't right. But I think if you can look at the job as an opportunity to make a difference and hear people out and not be about what do I think is best and what do I want to see happen, but how can I be a resource to help a community achieve its dreams. And I think it never hurts to really hone communication. I mean, I do a lot of writing, and so written communication and oral communication are important. I think understanding laws, we do a lot with legal and regulation, and so understanding how to look up statutes and understand how to read technical language. And to me, the last piece is about networking. I mean, I always say there's never a bad idea, it's just not the right opportunity. And so keeping those relationships open so that you know who to call when that opportunity arises is really important.
That's good to know. I mean, that's really good advice. And I think it's having that ear open to everyone. And just like, I know sometimes when people come in here, they just want to be heard. A lot of times it's the issues that they're coming in for me are very different than the coming in for you. But it's still, I think, something good that I see in this town is that people are willing to listen to you, and we're at, whatever department you're talking to or who you run into. So we are trying to talk about our next 5 years here at the library, and I think you just brought up a really good point, because I really try not to put just what I see or what I think should happen here. Sometimes that's hard because you have your own view of things, but how do you go about planning for that next? Do you have a long range plan, so to speak, that you work on? I'm trying to get this question out and it's not happening.
Right.
Sorry.
How do you be strategic and flexible?
There we go. She said it.
I think that we have to be adaptable and flexible at our core. And, the pandemic is a great example of that. I came out with a budget that had a lot of strategic plans in it, and we're building up reserve accounts, and I had spent a lot of time putting it together and presenting it. And within a week, that was turned upside down.
Okay.
And so we're still trying to recover from that. I think it's my job to know what are the challenges. And so, the first year or two in town, I didn't make a lot of those kinds of feedback. Worked on the internal operations. But it's my job to listen and hear what's going on, what I'm seeing, and get a flavor and a sense of the community. And I really count on my board to do that too.
Yeah.
And to be the conduit back and forth. So having the professional knowledge about things that are coming from the federal and state level, what are challenges in keeping up to date, is to me to bring the skeleton. And then it's really up to the community to help me say, yes, that's the skeleton that makes sense, or we need more arms or legs, or whatever it is. And then together, I think we flesh it out. And to me, that's part of the budget process, of course, and that's a great asset of the budget board, is there's a whole nother dozen people who really become engaged in what's happening in the community every year. And they go through it, and they give us feedback on what's important to them and what's not. And I can think, as I always say, it's a lot like community policing. And so community policing is a model where you go out in the community and learn what's important. And if I think the issue is that you need better sidewalks, but you think the issue is speeding, it doesn't matter what I think as the professional. Because at the end of the day, the service to the community is to take care of this other issue. And I think a lot of good planning efforts come about through that community engagement and really listening. But I think it's also a two-way street. As you said, when people come in and want to be listened to, I always tell people it never hurts to widen someone's view. So a lot of times people will come in with their issue. And when you start to explain to them why we haven't done that, or how that's challenging, or what else is going on, the blinders come off. And it doesn't mean that their issue isn't important anymore, but they start to understand the bigger picture. And they usually thank me for explaining the bigger picture to them, or at least they're able to absorb that with the other challenge. And the same is true for us. And I think everyone, no matter what organization or business you're in, has those frequent flyers that you hear from on a regular basis. And
I like that term.
they're the passionate people who want to stay engaged with you. And so I think it's also important when you hear from those people to not just shut them out, but to say, is it really a wolf at our door? Or do they have a really valid point? And to always listen to them with fresh eyes. And I always tell staff, we respond to everybody with the same courtesy. And that's really important, because they have valid points too. Now, you talked a little bit about, you write a lot. Have you ever thought about putting a book together? How to be the best town manager, kind of? It's funny because I always say when something new, big challenge, I said that's going to be chapter 10. Okay. So you have it in the works already. I think more of it as a sitcom. Okay. That one day I'll be in Hollywood as a expert saying, no, that's not how the cemetery worker would have come in to sell the Tupperware. But there are a lot of scenarios that I often think of visually played out that people wouldn't believe. But that's one of the reasons I love my job, is because it is varied. I am never bored. Every day, different. There is always something new and challenging to go to. What your strength is your weakness, and that means sometimes there's too much going on. But there is always plenty to keep us busy. So you are writing something down. I write notes every day. Good for you. No, I think that would be really beneficial, especially for when you retire, which we hope you don't do for a really long time. To sort of leave that, the notes in the drawer. For the next president.
As we start to wrap up our interviews, we'd like to do a little rapid fire round. You game for that? They're
Sure.
very easy questions. So, do you have a favorite movie?
I would probably say over the years I've had different favorite movies. But Pride and Prejudice is
Okay.
probably one of my go-tos.
Okay, good to know. Favorite restaurant? And it doesn't have to be here.
Yeah, during COVID, we just haven't eaten
I know.
out.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
I tend, I think, to either go for pub food or Mexican food because that's what my kids like. Of course, I go where my kids like to go.
Yeah.
If I was going someplace nice with a friend, it would be more of the quality food in smaller portions. But, I like variety,
Yep.
just like in my life. So I don't like to go to the same place all the time.
Yeah, I hear that. Favorite color?
Red.
Okay. Favorite ice cream?
I would say it's either something very heavily chocolate or it is like strawberry.
Okay. Coolest place you've ever been? Not temperature-wise, but cool.
Like the best. I would say probably one of my favorite places was going to Yosemite.
Okay.
My favorite place to go is Cadillac Mountain
Okay. Yep.
in Acadia. And but I went to Yosemite by myself, and then I took my kids there because it was so meaningful to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I'd love to go to Yellowstone. So if anybody wants
Yeah. Oh.
to go on that journey, that would be my next adventure.
Maybe we have a bus trip going from Kennebunkport. How long would you think that would take us?
Take a couple days.
It would take a couple days. So Cadillac Mountain, that's a really special place. I never, in all the years, I think maybe 10 years ago, was the first time I ever went there.
Oh, really?
What a beautiful place! And
I love sunrise at Cadillac.
I have not done that.
I have a picture. My favorite picture in the whole world is of my kids back when they were little, and we got up early from camping, went to the top of the mountain, and they're all wrapped up in their sleeping bags on top of Cadillac Mountain.
How nice.
And sunrise on Cadillac, there's nothing like it.
Okay. Well, I'll have to do that. The first time I went, it was pouring rain.
Oh,
And it was pea soup, fog.
yep.
So my husband and I, we were staying in town, and we said, well, let's just go up anyway. We'll see what's going on. So we checked into the information place on the way in, got our pass, and so we pulled off. We started up Cadillac Mountain in the car. We pulled off to the side to have a little picnic. And so I took one of the maps from the information center and I put it out on the dashboard and I said, this is what we're supposed to be looking at. So we went back again and, because it was just, we knew that there was something pretty spectacular to see, but that day that wasn't
Not so
happening.
much.
So, but it is a nice area. And do you get to go up there often or?
Depending on where I'm living in the
Yeah,
state,
yeah.
sometimes it's been easier. Of course, Acadia has become so popular
It really
over the last.
has,
Now
yeah.
you need reservations to go. So no, I don't get up there as much as I would like.
Yeah. The botanical garden? Have
Yeah.
you?
Yep. I was back in Booth Bay and Booth Bay Harbor back when they first started. It was an old subdivision. That, remember the crash in 1988, 89?
Yep.
And so that's how it all started. But I think it's a great example of how somebody turned a tragedy into a success.
Exactly.
And that community didn't know what to do. And it was a
Yeah.
very small group of people who started
Yeah.
with an idea.
Yeah, and it's spectacular. We finally were able to get a pass so that any resident in Kennebunkport this year can come in, sign it out for the day, and go up to the
that's great.
Coastal Botanical Garden. So we hope people will take advantage of that.
That's beautiful. And what's great is it changes.
It
with the
changes,
seasons.
yeah. Yep. I met somebody there who was dating a friend of ours, and I said, well, what do you do there? I work in the butterfly house. And I thought, how wonderful for you. Can you imagine? But, it was just, and she was just the calmest person. And, but it's a very magical place. And for all members of the family. So the trolls last year were
right. And that's what I think they do a great job with, engaging young people too. And I can't tell you how many people who were well over the age of 50 I saw take pictures of with the trolls and then post them. So they engage everybody.
They really do. They really do. Anything else you want us to know about?
I just hope that when you see your government employees at work, that you take a moment to thank them for their service. Because I work with a group of very special people who care deeply about the work they do. And believe it or not, they get a lot more complaints than thank yous. And so the pandemic, the past couple of years have been extremely hard on everyone, and they are no exception.
Yeah.
The challenges that they've had to face. And so, I care very much about their mental health and physical well-being too. And take a moment to thank them.
And we care about yours, so thank you for all you do. We hope you get to get out there and enjoy the summer with your family. If there is anything that we can do for you, just say the word. We'll be right there.
The best thing you do is being successful at what you do. And I don't have to worry about it.
Okay. All right. We like that. So, but really, thank you for everything that you do. You really make this town a very special place. So, we have definitely noticed, your great touches, your great things, your great ideas. So we hope you keep them coming for a while and stay well.
Well, you are very, very kind, Mary Lou, but thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight for another episode of What's Your Story? And hopefully we'll see you back here next time.